Oh, don't you want to pass it
I
around?
get it here.
Yeah, I get it.
Oh, is it that kind of stuff?
Hey, no,
You shouldn't.
please. No, I can't touch
Kom op
this.
nou jongens.
I can't touch it.
Ik leg het eventjes hier. Hè.
Take it off, show me something. Show me something. Look at the scope.
But, yeah, it went down a little bit. But it flickers, I don't understand this.
I'll never understand this switch. So now
Yeah, we have to find out as well because it only works when you have much backlight.
Oh, how sweet.
Then it keeps.
Yeah, but now it's much better because it's blacker.
Yeah.
But we have the same problem, the same camera, and we have the same
But maybe
problem.
they don't want it black in here in the room. Maybe they do.
Are you already taping?
Yeah.
Sure, they are.
Yeah, of course.
We are very concerned with the signal, you know, that's like a bread and butter for us. If the signal is no good, interview can never be good.
So how about the singer? It looks good.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah?
like a home. It's like at home, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just it makes you feel at home.
That's
if you
correct.
see if you see a scope.
Scope, I feel secure.
You feel at home.
I know what we are getting, you know.
Right.
It's okay.
So
Are
what
you
does it
pretty
mean to you?
enough?
What does video mean to you in your
It's the signal. It's the signal.
the signal?
Yeah, it is
Yeah,
the
but that's the
signal.
same way the people here at broadcast treat television. It's the signal they care about, not the contents.
That's still, I think, the only unifying element between us and the broadcast. We have the same medium. It's very hard to deny. What we do with it, of course, could be different. But a signal is a signal, and that's where it's what it's all about. It's the signal. And if you cannot produce the signal, then you don't have what we call the craft. And you can make arbitrary images, but you cannot understand how they are made. And you can hardly understand what they mean, according to us. So anyway,
But the signal as a signal doesn't mean anything to me. There should be also.
Signal is the art material.
That's
It's the
the paint.
clay for the potter, the paint for the painter.
Right.
And the painter has an acrylic paint or an oil paint, or he uses chalk. And it definitely changes the way the painting gets composed.
Right.
So for us, it's the signal. It's the art material.
So it's energy, time,
yes,
and that's what you see in the scope,
yes.
and that's what you're somewhat.
You can call it energy or time, or you can call it frequencies and voltages.
No, I mean, what you see on the scope is you see the brightness. I mean, black is very important in video. If you don't have black, then you don't have white. So the black, the reference, you must have a black in a picture, unless there is no black in the picture, in order to have white. So this whole idea about the signal telling you what is the reference of you to the world, to the brightnesses around you, goes through a signal. And signal has a perfect idea of telling you where the black is and where the white is. Also has some way of telling you about the color, how much color you have. So it's all what painters have, like just empirically working with the colors and brightnesses and amount of paint we have here. And you know, it's very hard to convince artists that this is about the same, or even less control than the painter has. Painter has everything, can control everything. We here have to look at the scope in order to get even close to the painter's possibilities. So if you reject that, say this is for the technician, then you have rejected most of the options you get in the medium.
I always thought that, let's say, video in general, meaning let's say the technology in the electronic technology in art, was a sort of one of the biggest contributions to fine arts, because there is a lot of pluses to it compared to painting, because you can't only paint or sculpt, but you can also control time, movement, and God knows, and colors and sound. But you're still looking at painting as the ultimate art form.
As a referential system, you see, it's like, for me, personally speaking, it's the moving image. I'm working in video because it moves. If it wouldn't move, I would not be interested. So I have the phenomenology inherited from film. That was my heritage. That I found alternate to a camera, photographic or filmic camera, in electronic material, like feedback or timing elements that I call organized time and energy. That was for me the decisive port point of departure from film. Yet I'm still dealing with moving image. So moving image as a phenomenon will stay with me even going to the computer or to the next medium, because each medium plays just a host to that phenomenon of moving image in time, in technological time. But other components, the pictorial components, of course have the language of painting or photography.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe first photography, then painting, but today we speak of painting as that one that has most control over the surface, let's face it. Photography is that one that is more accidental than painting.
Yeah, but yeah, it seems logical because you evolved from a moving pictures discipline, film. But for you, it's not that logical because you came
Oh,
from
it's more logical.
music.
Because I
Tell
come
me
from
about it.
music, which exists only in time. It is a medium that only exists while it is being played. So I, in a way, had a more relationship. I always feel I had an advantage over Woody doing video, because he came from film, which already was dealing with pictorial elements, with syntax, with timing. And film, as opposite to video, I always felt that film is a restrictive time and video is open time. And it could be just material bound, that it is so much more expensive to shoot film. But it's also aesthetic concern that film wants to edit. And since the sound in film and video in film is always separate from the material, it makes sense to stop and start and change position. It doesn't make sense in video because you are always laying down your soundtrack. So I felt it was like laying down a track, which I was very familiar with in audio. And I had worked with audio tape recorders already for a few years. And so the material was very friendly to me.
But how did you then, from these different disciplines, what was the common thing between the two of you? What unified you in working in video, both of you, apart from love?
Yeah, and love, yeah. No, I think it was kind of dissatisfaction with the media we worked at the time in. Like, I was very unable to work in film because I was educated in film, and I knew virtually, not everything, but a lot about film. And I thought that was a dead end for me. And so I found this video as a complete liberation, which I could still draw from the experience of film, but its phenomenology was so different that I was completely free. I could develop my own place in it, and this material could become like a personal philosophy, practical philosophy, and the video was the vehicle to do it, with no responsibility to the art world, to the critics, and to the world, period. It was a play, and I was allowed to play with no punishment. Play was suddenly the content of the work we were both doing. Anyway, for me,
yeah, but I didn't find you so free. I found Woody to be quite restricted in images, because he would time and time again say, "You cannot do that." And I said, "Why can't I do that? That's not done." And I could do anything I wanted to, because I was uneducated completely in image gathering and image making. So I saw nothing wrong with doing something that seemed to be wrong to Woody. But at the same time, when we bought our video equipment, when we got involved, we got very involved in audio synthesis, in electronic audio. And as a matter of fact, our first video tool was an audio synthesizer, because that's how we knew we were going to unify the two materials, which is basically one material.
Mm-hmm.
And Woody immediately started composing. And I would say to him, "You can't do that." And he would say, "Why can't I do that? It doesn't have rhythm. Why does it have to have rhythm?" They said, what does it tell you? And so on and so forth. So we found the freedom in the opposite medium. And typically, I would do much more video, and Woody would do much more sound in the beginning. I think it's still the case.
Yeah, but I still draw on her, I would say, primitivism, because all camera in my narrative work is done by her. And I like her kind of inability to follow the conventions of film, for example. So it's a great advantage to be free of, conventions in a way.
But so you both lost some limitations in working together?
Yeah.
One of the traditional limitations given by your former disciplines. But now, the last years, you are a little bit operating on your own again. You made the commission as a Woody Vasulka. It's not the Vasulkas, but it's a Woody Vasulka work. You made the West as Steina's work. So what happened?
You were the first one to split because you became so interested in that Tetra machine and you wanted to do film. You actually did film, see? And that's where I wasn't with you anymore because I wasn't interested.
But why did I make film?
For the resolution, no?
No.
Oh, for stereo.
You see?
Yeah.
I didn't use film as a medium, but only as a vehicle. So you cannot accuse me like that.
I wasn't accusing you particularly.
What are you doing, Jess?
I like those films.
Oh, I see. So anyway, so yes, tools separated us, that's true.
Right. So it's
On the other hand, also concepts separated us because Steina went to what we call optical mechanical arrangements a lot, like cameras that rotate on turntables.
Just that same year when you were
That's
doing
right.
when you were doing the cathode ray tube investigation and to film and doing stereo separating channel, that's when I mounted my camera for the first time on a car. I mounted it upside down, right side, left, and this and that, and made the first tape that way. And that was sort of my rebellion against. I was considered actually a good camera person or a decent camera person, but I couldn't take it that this fascism of me always deciding what the whole world was gonna see. It was this eye and this zooming in and out that was gonna decide what the picture would be. I found it quite fascistic, and also I made mistakes from time to time, and then I said, why should I be here making this kind of human mistakes, and there is no blinking of the eye. Why shouldn't there always on the TV tube ever so often be this eyelash that goes over, just to remind the viewer, this is just somebody looking through here,
that would be a nice installation piece.
Yeah, yeah, anyhow, so that's when I thought that the camera should be remote and should only be remotely operated and away from this point of view, this image imperialism. So I started mounting it low and high and on various things, and maybe most of all on my turntable. I got very hooked on my turntable, and that would rotate always 360 degrees this way. I could rotate it that way, and then I started figuring out that actually the limit of camera movements is pan, tilt, zoom, and rotation, and
Dolly.
and dolly, which is zoom. It's the
Not
Z
really.
Z axis. It is the X,
Yeah, but
Y,
it's not a
and
zoom.
Z axis.
Changes perspective in
Yeah.
a completely different way. See, in a way, in both cases, we separated because of the rebellion against the camera. See, the camera, as I see it, is this dominant instrument that inherited from photography and
the
film.
optical part of the
That's
camera.
right.
Camera obscura.
That, as I call pinhole
Right.
image forming principle, that became my personal target of rebellion. And I was looking into the instruments and trying to find alternate source of image. In her case, it was the eye she rebelled against, because she accepted the camera as an instrument, but not the eye as the supreme selective power. So in that way, we completely differ from cinematic idea about camera eye, which has consistently been, even in computer, designated images for film. It's still the eye is the supreme observer of the event. It's the ich form in storytelling. So we both abandoned that. Strangely, we went to different areas. Then Steina went to this optical and mechanical work, and I went to the computer.
Yeah, let me ask something about that. Different fields you went into. You went into, with your optical means, into most of the times in nature, in your backyard or in the landscape or whatever. Is that sort of natural counterbalance to the technological part of what you're doing?
No, you see, I always used existing images, also before. I always used, I did a lot of taping in my studio, and I only had, I had those so-called ground rules, like if the camera was, say, set on a turntable and moving, and there was a chair right there and it was ugly, I couldn't remove the chair, because I was not there to arrange anything for this screen or change reality. So my idea was always just to use the images that are in the environment and totally arbitrarily, not aim and shoot and make a perfect frame and see everything as a, say, photographer does, or as a painter must do, select your frame.
Or cinematographer or video maker.
Yeah, or cinematographer, you know. If I was taping a cow and the cow walked half into the frame and half out of the frame, that was fine with me. That was just a cow that was half out of the frame. I couldn't take the camera and adjust it so the cow would be back in the middle. So this is the kind of image attitude I've always had. And moving to New Mexico, I suddenly lost a studio space because the houses are very small there. It's hard to operate inside. But I gained the world because there is always sunshine in New Mexico. There is always opportunity to use the outside. It's comfortable and it is gorgeous. And there are all the blue skies and the nature. It's a kitsch. It is too beautiful. But I couldn't resist it. And again, I went with the same attitude and the same zest of, here is the world and I can suck it into my camera. I can get all those images and they are all mine. And this is the kind of a gluttony idea of using landscapes that I'm still in, you know. Maybe I should at some point restrict myself and become a little...
so disgusting,
huh?
It's the whole idea of using non-urban image. It's still abhorring to me, you know. How can one go for a landscape which is God made, you see, and agree that this is a possibility for one's art? I mean, I have ethical problems with it.
So that's why you drifted towards dramatic narrative.
That's right. On the other hand, even into my own work, the landscape is begin to creep. It is probably impossible to live in such closeness to a landscape which is so beautiful without being affected, and eventually it demoralizes you. You cannot hold the position of an urban, you know, formalist. You eventually simply wither away. That's the danger of living in the countryside anyway. With all the bad ideas about society are always born on the land. See, that's the whole idea of 19th century. A kind of a positivist thought. It has to be grown in an urban environment. So I'm torn between urban and rural, and but also, of course, between this fantasy of inventing a language, which I've given up on. It's not an idea I can really execute with video, but I still believe a computer gives me that chance. That's what has the next option of inventing the image. The way film invented its own moving image, computer is the second tool that can possibly accomplish it. But video has very limited, what I would call the register of phenomenologies that can only point towards the possibility, but cannot truly invent the image. But conceptually it's a good tool because it gives all kind of other options.
Now you're somewhat adding the visual gains you found in your, let's say, the scan processor and now the digital stuff. You are adding that now to narrative pieces, or you're going into, let's say, the old traditional drama forms with your new tools.
So it's very hard to say why I decided to go out of the pure video phenomenology, like video for video with video material, why I'm tempted to do something that's related to the other art forms, or even dramatic forms, like theater or film or opera or other musical, concepts. There are probably two reasons. One, I might have felt that I have somehow exhausted the obvious phenomenology of video. Like maybe I just find out that it's a limited a kind of a register of okay, there is certainly a limited register of images. But I think it was more or less a challenge from the other art forms, that suddenly I was trying to equate or find sort of a narrativity which would be related to drama, to theater, to film, to musical forms. And I guess it was just that kind of a challenge which I was trying to meet with or I am trying to meet with the textures and a language which I found in video. And it's probably that simple. On the other hand, there is always this source. I think phenomenology of any medium is a source for its interpretation. And I was, in fact, conceptually always against using kind of one texture or one concept from the medium onto completely different application. This kind of a utility of the phenomenology I thought was not very ethical. So and suddenly I find myself in a problem in which I take certain events, or some people call effects, that I found in a different area and applying them, let's say, to a drama, in the case of the piece called Pariah. But my ethics also changed. I'm not a purist. I might have been for a few hours in the past. But now I see problems of moving image in a much broader area. There's no threatening. I mean, I don't feel unsecure against the other art forms because they all are in some kind of a crisis. So I guess that's also a reason one can open to the other art forms.
So you more or less crossed, your path more or less crossed. You started off in the cinematography and you started off in the performing arts, and now you're moving towards this sort of performing arts, and you are doing your own sort of cinematography.
Except I always consider every work I do, I consider to be a system performance. I call them system performance, right, because I set up a system, and you can think about the West. The system is basically the turntable, and this say the sphere, or there is some system that I then set up, and then I stand back, hands off, look ma, I'm not there, walk away, and the system performs the image.
Yeah, right.
So it's that kind of performance.
But then there's another question. You were one of the few artists of that generation of artists who got involved in technology, and they all left more or less. Most of them, they all went into money making in some form, somewhat. What kept you in the arts?
I mean, it's still not finished. I mean, the job is not finished. It's basically what you impose on yourself, what your ambitions are. If your ambitions are really great, you cannot leave the job behind, you see. I guess we're just ambitious people, and we just want to, in a way, prove probably to the whole world that there is an art form that should be defined correctly, whatever. So it's kind of it's a vanity, I would say, to begin with, but then it's a lot of unfinished business there, and especially in video, in proximity of a computer, there is so much that have been just suggested, and in each of our works there's always the suggestion, but there's very few accomplishments, as we say, let's say in compositional form, sense. So I think it's also the first time when we started to compose, so to speak, last 5 years or 4 years. Like the West is completely composed. There's no fluxus idea about time. It's really very confined, and I kind of watched it as it developed, and it's very musical in its form. As a kind of contrapoint, and there's a modulation, and then it drops into different key. So in a way,
recurrence of themes.
Yeah, for me it's a very simple way of reading it. Yet when it's performed, it's actually complex, and one cannot comprehend images with the same ease as one comprehends sounds. So that's why I still, when I look at it, I catch little variations which I didn't catch. On the other hand, I know she didn't plant them all, and the media gives you a way of composing, the way she did it, gives you a lot of very beautiful incidental or accidental relationships. But she understood those and didn't eliminate them.
In other words, if you didn't know me, he would think I was more clever.
Oh, I would think she was a devil, But since I know her, I knew it's still I'm gaining more respect for it, because when first I saw it, I glimpsed walking by, I said, too pretty. See that landscape again.
No, you wouldn't say that. You said, "Oh, it is so beautiful." And that was the encouragement I got.
The landscape always made me nauseatic. See, but eventually I accept it now.
So it has been a long way from the kitchen to the living room to Santa Fe.
That's right.
And you still remember why you founded the kitchen? Still.
Yeah, it got too crowded at home. I mean, we didn't have a problem with audience. We always had audience, and the problem was eventually we got too much audience. Home. They would always come knocking on the door, and they would typically come full of dope and marijuana and grass and everything.
From the upstairs.
Yeah, wherever. And they would sit down, and we would have this evening after evening. And eventually we thought, well, if this is going to go on like that, why not just open a legitimate place and let people come there? So that was sort of the urge behind it. But then our friend Andy Manick, who started the kitchen with us, he found this beautiful place. And there was just no way to leave that place alone. The place called out, this is a media art theater. And so we just went for the calling,
Well, thank you a lot. It's, before we run out of tape again, I hope you enjoyed your visit to Amsterdam, and hope to see you back soon.
New herring.
Either. Oh, new herring, yeah.
New herring.
And there's the old feedback.
Good old feedback. Should be a song that someone should write about.